Muhammad, Muhammad, Muhammadur Rasulullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. What happens to an individual who decides to travel by two ships simultaneously? That is the question before us today and every day. What happens to the individual who chooses to travel in two ships or two boats simultaneously? One foot in one boat or ship and the other one in the other. Can such an individual survive for a long period of time? One can argue that maybe yes, if both the ships are going at the same speed, and if they are going in the same direction, and if their destination is the same, then one could technically argue that yes, such an individual could potentially survive. But what if eventually the destination becomes different for both ships? One goes to the right, the other goes to the left. Can an individual then stay on both ships at the same time? It doesn't take an Einstein or a rocket scientist to figure this one out. The answer is no. The moment those two ships part ways, the individual who does not choose one ship over the other eventually will drown, will fall in the water and will drown in it. Even young children can understand this very simple example. This is the condition of majority of the people in their day-to-day life. For example, when the youngsters, when the youth are considering a potential rishta, I have come across such youth who don't want to consider a single rishta at a time. Rishta in this context means a marriage proposal. If a boy is looking into getting married, he wants to have multiple options on the table before him. If the girl is getting married, she wants to have multiple options before her on the table. They don't want to consider a single option. They want to consider two options, and because of that, they lose time. Because of that, their focus is divided. Because of that, many other vices take place in any given society. Now, this is just one example. We can take many other examples. If you have to buy a home and you like two homes, you can only afford one, but you like both homes, what do? You don't put an offer on both homes, you put the offer on one home that you feel really strongly about. If it goes through, well and good. If it doesn't go through, then you switch to the other option that you have. But you wouldn't put your offer on two properties at the same time. It defies logic. Now let's take this example and apply it to religion. When we study the history of Islam, when we study the earlier period of Islam from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and of course his Sahaba Ridwanullah alayhim ajma'in, what is it that we notice? We notice that there were different factions of people, different groups of people. The Sahaba, the Kibar Sahaba, the true companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from day one, they were riding the same boat. They knew Allah exists. They knew Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of God. They knew Islam is the deen from Allah Almighty. Their loyalties were not divided between Islam and their family members or the society or the material possessions that they had. They knew that this is the ship, this is the boat that we choose to be on. And then you have the kuffar. They chose the other boat. The boat of the mu'mineen, the boat of the Sahaba, being led by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In this example, let's say that this boat was going towards the right. The boat, the other ship, it was spearheaded by the likes of Abu Jahl, the disbelievers, the arch nemesis of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Umayyah bin Khalf, Abu Lahab, and the likes thereof. They were on this ship, and all the kuffar, the disbelievers, were riding that ship. Let's say in this example that the ship was going towards the left. Now we have these two ships clearly defined. And obviously the destination is, of course, clearly defined as well. But then there was a third group of people. This third group of people were the ones who had their one leg on the ship of the believers and the other leg on the ship of the disbelievers. They were not fully believers and they were not fully disbelievers. They were somewhere in the middle. And time was about to come when these two ships were going to steer off in different directions. This group of people who had one leg in one ship and the other leg in the other are in Islam known as the hypocrites, the munafiqun. When they would meet the Sahaba, the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the believers, they would say, "We believe the way you have believed." But when they would go to the disbelievers' camp, they would say, "We were only joking with the believers. In our heart of hearts, we're actually with you." Why is it that they adopted this attitude? Because they weren't fully convinced that Islam is true, and at the same time, they saw their family members, their other relatives, in droves becoming Muslims. So there was that societal element to it, that it was a famous movement. Everybody, left, right, and center, was becoming a Muslim. But then at the same time, they were holding on to their beliefs from before, the beliefs held by their forefathers. And in certain cases, it wasn't more so of a belief, it was more so of what Islam was asking of them to do, which they did not want to participate in. So they would say it's easier to be a disbeliever than to be a believer. After all, what was it that Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was calling the believers towards? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was saying, you have to give up drinking alcohol, which was the norm of that society. People in Arab of that time, the people in Arabia in that time used to drink 5 times a day. Not once or twice, not over the weekend, but actually 5 times every day. And in Islam, Allah Almighty through Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam replaced it with praying 5 times a day. The 5 daily prayers. The 5 daily prayers were supposed to be the antidote for those people who were drinking 5 times a day. It replaced drinking 5 times a day with something which was far better. This, to many people, was not easy. Before Islam, people used to treat women as commodities, as things that they can use and then discard afterwards. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and said, the best among you is he who is best in the treatment of his wife and children. Let me repeat this for those who need to hear it. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that the best among you is he who is best in the treatment of his wife and children. Who did he say this to? The Arabs who were listening and the primary recipient of the message of Islam. What was the other side saying? The other ship. They were saying, treat your women the way you want to treat them. It's your business, nobody else's business. The other side used to say, the other ship spearheaded by Abu Jahl, those people believe that women do not deserve to inherit. Because of that, fathers would not give their property in inheritance to their daughters. Husbands would not give or leave anything for their wives. Brothers would take away from the inheritance of their sisters. To this day it still happens, by the way, unfortunately. What is it that the people in the ship of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam believed? Give women their due rights. The people on the other ship, the ship of the left side, believed that it's okay to abuse women, to swear at them and to beat them. And the ship of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what did they believe? The people in that ship, in that boat, believed, La tadribu ima Allah. Do not strike the servants, the female servants of Allah. Look how beautifully Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam explained to us in this single sentence that our mothers, that our wives, our daughters, our sisters, they're not our servants. They're the servants of the Almighty God. That's not what the other ship believed. Then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, we, the body of believers, the jama'at of believers is like one body. When one part of it feels pain, the entire body feels the pain. On the other side, that was not the case. Because they were not a jama'at, they were not a community. They were a group of people that came together, but they did not really have a leadership. On the other side, we had clear leadership in the person of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and after his demise, Khilafat. Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, then Sayyidina Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, then Sayyidina Usman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, and then Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. We had leadership. The other side did not. Look at any example and you come to this conclusion that clearly these were two different camps, poles apart from one another. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught that at times you would be required to spend from your wealth, but worry not, because that wealth which you spend in the way of Allah Ta'ala will be returned to you not only in this life but in the afterlife as well. Think about this for a second. Take a pause, breathe, listen again. The wealth that you spend for the sake of Allah Almighty will not only be returned to you up to 700 times or even more in this life, but in reality it would also be multiplied many times and given back to you in the afterlife, because that's the real wealth which will go with you. The other side did not believe in this. There are many examples that I can cite, but the bottom line is, since day one, there have been two ships. And since day one, there have been people who have been riding the ship on the right side, and there have been people who have been riding the ship on the left side. And since day one, there have been people who have been riding both ships at the same time, hoping that eventually they'll get somewhere. Those people who choose to be on the left ship, at least they are clear in their mind, they're courageous enough to pick a side. Albeit the wrong side, but at least they had the courage to pick a side. Whereas those who choose to stand in both ships at the same time, there can be no respect for such individuals. Can such an individual who shows cowardice be ever respected? Respect is for the brave who choose a side. So at the end, I ask all of us, pick a side. Don't be half Ahmadi Muslim. Don't be a 50% Ahmadi Muslim and 50% on the other side. Pick a side and stick to it. Because if you pick a side, at least you'll be respected for picking a side, whatever the side it be. Don't try to ride two ships simultaneously, because the end result, as we know from history of all the previous prophets as well, all the way to our times, is that those who try to ride two ships at the same time always drown. There is no other scenario for them. There is no other possible ending for them. They always drown. As you know, inshallah, our Tehreek-e-Jadid year is coming to a close. by the end of this month, and many individuals have not participated in it. So I ask once again, which ship do you want to ride? Pick a side and stick to it. Because you cannot say that you want to be a member of the Jamaat of Masih Maud alayhi salam, the Imam Mahdi alayhi salatu wasalam. You want to be on the ship, but at the same time, you also want to ride the other ship. Some people may say, how is someone who doesn't participate in Jamaat activities or in financial system, if such an individual does not participate in these things, how are they riding the other ship? The same way that at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there were people who would not participate in salat, who would not participate in spending in the way of Allah Ta'ala, who would not participate in defending themselves, the battles that Muslims had to fight in self-defense. In exact same fashion, exact same manner, we have people even today. So it's a question that me and you equally have to answer. Which ship am I on? If you are on the ship of promised Messiah alayhi salam and Mahdi alayhi salatu wasalam, show it through your actions. Because if you do not supplement your faith, if you do not, or if I am not willing to support my claims with actions, then mere words cannot get us anywhere.
Rasulullah.